So ILM is, or was, the world's first visual effects company. We were created by George Lucas in 1975 when he was making a little sort of science fiction film that had a very low budget, and he wanted to achieve things in camera that had never been achieved before, with flying spaceships around and crashing them and blowing things up. And so he found a group of sort of like-minded high school dropouts in the Valley in LA and set up a company which he called Industrial Light and Magic. And over the years, that company has evolved. So when it started out, it was all about practical effects using miniatures. And over the years, we have not only embraced but also pioneered and invented CGI, basically the use of 3D computer graphics in animation and film, and lots of sort of technological advances, all emanated really out of the corridors of ILM. There are some very, very clever people there. One in particular, actually, that I will mention is our creative director, John Null, who recently celebrated 30 years since his student project, which was writing Adobe Photoshop. Career highlights, going right back to the start. I mean, the very first movie I ever worked on is one of the best films I ever worked on, which is Atonement. I was the first shot my career was involved with was the 5.5 minute tracking Dunkirk beach shot in Atonement, which is, starting on a high there really, and it took me about 3 or 4 years to even come close to doing anything as good as that again. Some other favourite films over the years, Paul with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. That project was an absolute riot to work on. It was really, really good fun. Dark Knight Rises as well. I had a full head of hair before that project, and that stadium collapse did for my scalp, but the pictures look great fun in the end. And then, since I moved over to ILM, obviously it's every kind of sci-fi nerd's dream come true is to get to work on a Star Wars film. So the fact that I've kind of sort of worked on 3 is fantastic. I was on set for Rogue One, which was just incredible. That walking out into a disused carpet factory in North London and realizing that you're walking onto the Death Star was incredible. And having probably the biggest memory of that though is being on set for the Darth Vader Nosferatu shadow thing, and actually just seeing someone dressed up as the guy in black. It was just incredible. And then working on Solo, a Star Wars story as well, had great fun there. Hanging out with Chewbacca every day, hanging out on the Millennium Falcon. It's it's the stuff sort of dreams are made of really. But about 5 or 6 years ago, someone at ILM who'd got a lot of sensitive material on their laptop got drunk in a bar in San Francisco and left that laptop in a bar, and the clients had to be informed that their sensitive material was out there, and it caused quite a sort of major incident. And so apparently there was a lot of sort of men in suits and sunglasses turned up at the ILM offices, and then ultimately the laptop was retrieved and no questions were asked. But since then they've implemented lots and lots of sort of levels of security. So we're allowed to take our stuff with us and work from home, but should we lose anything, they can just wipe it instantly. The last couple of days of any Star Wars shoot, everybody wants a selfie with Chewbacca, right? So you tend to... we're relied on to be sensible about that sort of thing. You don't want to upset anybody, and you obviously don't want to leak any information. But when it's coming down to the last couple of days and you just wanting a souvenir to remember the good times, then the rules relax a little bit and you can take a few photos. But you must not post them on Facebook or Twitter. That's the big thing. Initial perception would be that my job is to kind of creatively drive and almost direct any shots that have got visual effects in them. And that is the primary role, is that I'm like the creative director for visual effects shots, and I will liaise with the actual director of the movie to realise their vision and then steer and sculpt the work and my artists into getting the results that is ultimately going to make the director happy. There's a lot more to it than that though. So I'm involved in a project from the very early outset, looking at the script and having to go through the script and determine what will be visual effects and what won't. And then from that work out what the methodology would be, what the costs to the client will be, and then you enter into a sort of a protracted process of bartering, basically horse trading as to what they can afford versus what they want. And always the two things are different. Everybody always wants steak, but they want to pay minced beef prices. So you come into a happy agreement with the client about methodology and expectations, and then while we're on set, determining how we shoot it. I'm the one that decides where the green screen goes and how bright the green screen is, and whether we use a green screen at all, and if there's smoke or if there's no smoke, all that kind of thing. And then when we get into post-production, then that's when it sort of the technical and the creative stuff takes over, and I'm sitting there in a dark room all day telling the artists what to make faster, what to make slower, what to make brighter, and what to make darker. ILM as a company, we actually had 1917 in the bag, and then just due to various scheduling and crewing issues, had to say we couldn't do the project, and lo and behold, it's gone and won the Oscar. So I think as a company we feel a little disappointed that we let that one slip. A lot of industry professionals and academic sort of universities, etc., will advise that you need to specialise, and you need to specialise early. I actually disagree with that. So this may be slightly controversial. I got where I got to be by being a generalist and being a bit of a jack of all trades. I'm not going to say I was a master of none of them, but I am a jack of all trades. I was a generalist, and I never really specialised in anything. I just made that I had a good working understanding of pretty much every discipline within visual effects. And I think that's the advice I would give, is that the broader your skill set, the more you know about everything, the more hireable you are, and the more retainable you are. So we often find, we're a business-driven industry. We like every industry now, it's about money, it's about profits, it's about a business. You can't afford to make a loss, and so quite often now, artists are employed by film. We'll have a busy period, working on a massive movie, and then when that movie runs out of work, people have to be let go. The people who keep those jobs are the ones who can jump out of one department and move into another. So we might have a lighter who's on one film, and then that person stays at the company and moves over into the generalist department, or an effects TD that then moves into the creature department. Those are the sort of people that will, are more hireable, more retainable. So I think that would be my key piece of advice is, whilst everyone probably does need to specialise at some point, don't specialise too soon, and don't be too narrow in your specialism. I have been very loosely connected with confetti for more like about 25 years, in all honesty. In a previous life, I was based in Nottingham, and I used to be a professional DJ and record producer. So I actually used to use confetti as a studio, and I think that's all it was just one little recording studio. So it's amazing to see how that little project back then, that was sort of doing some good and putting something back into the community back then, has grown into this amazing sort of centre of learning that it is now, and how it's branched out to cover all aspects of sort of creative arts and technologies. So it's just a massive thumbs up from me, and I'm really, really glad that all these years later in this new career that I get to come back and sort of, you guys are interested in listening to me waffle on every now and again about films. I think it's playing a fantastic part in the East Midlands. I don't know whether Leicester or Derby have got anything like this. I don't think they have, and big up Nottingham for confetti, really. My favourite Star Wars character. There's a lot. Han Solo was always a favourite. I have to say, probably actually Chewbacca, and so that's one of the great things about having the most of the time I've spent working on Star Wars films. I've spent it on Solo, and so whilst if you'd only worked on, say, Force Awakens or something like that, then obviously Luke Hamill and Harrison Ford are quite old now. There's not shadows of their former selves, but then the characters are very different to what they were in the 70s and the 80s, and most people sort of fell in love with. And then working on the Solo movie, there were some criticisms that it wouldn't be like working on a real Star Wars film because it wasn't Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. Well, the thing was, I was working with Chewbacca, and that's the real Chewbacca. So it didn't really matter whether this was 1975, 1985, or 2005 or 2015. I was working with Chewbacca, and this just something so cool about getting a cuddle off that Wookiee every morning. The train heist, which was the sequence that I worked on, the opening to that sequence was originally supposed to be a bit like a sort of comedy moment from a Western, and that we were going to have Han and Chewie riding beasts of burden like these, like the sort of the furry horses that are in the late Star Wars film, the thing that they ride along the deck of the Star Destroyer. They were going to be like those, Han and Chewie riding along those, and then coming alongside the train and trying to scramble on board, and like Chewie makes it on but Han doesn't, got dragged along by the side of the train. And Ron Howard thought that was too much of a comedy moment, and decided to take that away. But so I guess that's a sort of a fact that not a lot of people might know. I've got a lovely piece of art in a frame in the hallway at home, which I was sent a couple of months after we finished Solo, which was some concept art for the train sequence of the train crashing off the bridge. It's not the most sort of it's a bit macabre, really, you know, like a train crashing off a bridge in a fireball. It's not normally the thing that you'd hang in the hallway. But he wrote a lovely inscription that says, "Julian, thank you very much for all your hard work," and, you know, thumbs up from Ron Howard. So it's, it's quite a nice sort of prized possession to have around the house. As long as people still want Star Wars and the people are willing to pay money to see it, it will keep getting made. I mean, where are we now? We've just had The Mandalorian, which to me I think is actually the best piece of Star Wars content in the last 10 years. In all honesty, I think the Mandalorian, particularly that final episode, is better than any of the new films, including Rogue One and Solo, which I worked on both. I think it's just absolutely pure genius. I loved it. So hopefully we'll get a load more stuff like that. There'll be a lot of TV. Clone Wars, the animated series, has just come back again, so they brought that back. You know, and who knows? What I think we'll explore is maybe less of a sort of a shameless money-making drive by Disney to put a film out every year, which I think perhaps might have been the original plan. It'll be more of a sensible, measured approach of a film every couple of years. And I think what they'll want to do is sort of explore the idea a little bit like Marvel is also going to do, which there's only so many action adventures you can tell in a universe. So why don't we start exploring things like maybe we have a film that's a comedy? Maybe there's a film that's a romance. Maybe there's a film that's a detective thriller or something like that. Sort of exploring new storytelling genres, just painted against that canvas rather than, you know, just so you treating the Star Wars universe like our own universe, but telling different stories within that. And I think that's the way that Disney will keep Star Wars fresh and interesting for generations to come, hopefully. Well, I guess really let's hope that anyone studying visual effects and confetti was in some way inspired by my talk, and, you know, let's hope we all see you in the office in a couple of years' time when you've all got jobs at ILM.